Is it just me, or did they take a really long time in announcing Armada Galvatron for United? I remember seeing the listings for it ages ago saying it'd be in Wave 3, but then when we saw that wave, he was nowhere to be seen. Then what, like 3 weeks later we get a pipeline reveal for him in United Wave 4, after already having seen a render of him in the old Tidal Wave box art ages ago. Just seems very backwards. That Galvatron design is very nostalgic for me since I had the original as a kid, so I was interested in grabbing it, but it got to the point where I was just skeptical if it'd ever release, so instead I opted to grab Legacy Evolution Armada Universe Megatron, the original version of the mold, and you know what, with the way that this guy looks, I don't regret it. The sculpted detail on this guy is spectacular. There's a whole lot of detail on the go here that evokes the cartoon very nicely. Usually I wouldn't enjoy such a blanket amount of sculpting, but the shallower line work and fashionable asymmetry work in its favour. This looks fantastic. There are of course moments where the details go a little harder. The tread shoulders are so textural and they give this figure a really great presence. The left hand is sculpted to resemble the gimmick claw from the original toy, and the turret on the back has a little extra sculpting to help it really stand out. The head is probably my favourite feature here though. The helmet looks fantastic, and the horns look spot on, and even though they look thin, I wouldn't worry about them breaking. They're removable and they're made of a slightly flexible plastic that helps ease any concerns. The real thing that makes this guy stand out are the proportions. Compared to the cartoon model, the proportions are dead perfect, more so than some of the other figures I've handled, and thanks to that this figure looks stellar, and that's enhanced even more by the colours. In the product photos he looks like this sickly olive green, but instead the greens are rich and deep, and balance nicely against the vibrant purple, muted grey and deep black. And this guy's covered in paint, with loads of accents all over him and a multitude of colours. The standouts definitely being the crisp silver on the chest plate and shoulders, and that beautiful hint of metallic blue on the head. Whew. Fucking lovely colour that is. As for accessories, there are none. Kinda. The tip of the cannon barrel can come off and replace one of the hands if you really want to, but personally, I don't think that looks great. Instead, I prefer just to use the back cannon in its entirety. The cannon barrel can swing under the figure's arm just like in the show, or you can go through a short few transformation steps to give him the Doom Boner! This looks stupid, but it's pretty fun, and it works out for the tidal wave integration. But beyond that cannon, there aren't really many play features on this guy. Something like a knife for the wank glove or a blast effect for the cannon would have been a little nicer in my opinion, because unfortunately, using the posability alone doesn't get you too far. Overall, the posing here is okay. The head is on a very restricted ball joint, so no up or down. The shoulder pylons are on an actuating hinge for the transformation and can add a little extra range to the shoulders, but they are excessively loose out of the box. Fortunately, you only need to screw them in a little tighter to fix the issue. The arms move forward, but not backwards. At all. There's bicep swivels, elbows, wrists. There's a waist swivel that clashes with the cannon a little. The hips are nicely ratcheted going forward and back, but irritatingly loose going out. You have your thigh swivels, a ratcheted knee bend, and a decent ankle pivot. The posing isn't the worst I've ever seen, but the loose joints, the awkward foot shape, and the limited head make this guy a bit of a chore to get into dynamic poses. And those shoulders are one piece of recent design that I absolutely detest. And for the record, I'm not talking about the pylons being static. I know that annoys some people, but it doesn't annoy me. I'm talking about the lack of backward movement. This shoulder design has popped up on a couple of figures lately, and it really pisses me off. It was bad enough with only a couple degrees going back on Legacy Blitzwing, but this doesn't go backwards at all. Walking poses look clunky. Relaxed stances look clunky. Anything that isn't an actively aggressive pose just doesn't work. This is an assured way to make me like a figure less, and here it brings a really solid figure down for me because of it. The only saving grace of the shoulders being done in this way is to make the transformation smoother and less complicated. The way the larger panels move around is admittedly very nice and makes me quite nostalgic for that original Galvatron, with just a little extra complexity to fill the gaps and get it up to chug standard. And closing up the legs in a uniquely satisfying way, you're left with a tank mode that is just perfect. There's no other way I can put that. This looks perfect. It's solid. Sure, it's not got all the play features of the original, but we're not doing that anymore, and those original gimmicks are at least referenced, like the triple panels at the front that used to pop out, or the flip out missile builds in the back of the turret. And speaking of the turret, it works great still. Granted, the rotation is locked to let it sit at the cartoon accurate angle in robot mode, fair enough, but there is still up and down motion, there's the rotation, and that's all I'd say I need in a turret. And all that greebling and the details just make me very nostalgic. This thing perfectly embraces the classic H-Tank and I can respect it. Nostalgia. Overall, this is a very good figure. I can't and won't deny that. It really stands as a great representation of the modern Chug update, taking a classic design, upgrading the proportions and posing, but unfortunately, that shoulder issue just holds me back from liking this guy as much as I know I could. Still, this thing stands exceptionally well with the other Armada figures. If that's what you want him for, then this guy is a complete home run. And even then, I'd recommend this guy without that circumstance, but I would be very wary of the issues he has before committing, or else he may disappoint.